the numbers for a second.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how we doing today?
Doing all right, man. It's good to be back. The last time we tried to record, obviously, we had some pretty bad issues, but we're back.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't know, we tried to record an episode for you in May, but it didn't work out because our webcam crapped out and some of our lights crapped out, so we had to get some new equipment. But don't worry, it's the same us, and we're still here to talk about this upcoming football season, and there is a lot to talk about this upcoming season.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to call this season the season of the revenge match. There's so much animosity from the end of last season. A lot of things mixed up during the playoffs. This season's going to be exciting.
This season is going to be exciting, and let's talk about just one off-season moves. Before we get to it, we're going to be talking about some games that we're going to be looking forward to and possibly talking about in the future for this upcoming season. But let's talk about the biggest off-season move since our last podcast, and that is Baker Mayfield, the former number 1 overall draft pick from the Cleveland Browns, was traded to the Carolina Panthers. Chris Palmer, what are your thoughts on that?
You see, Baker's not a fit there in Carolina. I'm going to say that outright. Baker is a good enough quarterback for Cleveland. And I feel like Cleveland agreeing to getting rid of him was a be careful what you wish for moment. He produced an energy into Cleveland it was a dead franchise for years. So to get rid of the one player that actually gave you guys a breath of life, to go from an 0-16 season to I think it was 7-9 the next year.
Yeah.
And that was before they had Kareem Hunt and before they had Nick Chubb. That was before.
Well, no, they had Nick Chubb. They drafted Nick Chubb in the same round as Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
So they've been together this whole time. But to piggyback off what you said, before Cleveland had Baker Mayfield and made all those moves to get those young players, they were a very desperate franchise. And I think part of that seeped into their mentality this offseason because they felt that their quarterback was their weakest position. So they traded Baker Mayfield, but before they traded him, they signed Deshaun Watson.
Yep, they did, and they're going to reap what they sow because he's probably not going to play a snap this year.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson was formerly under 24 allegations of sexual misconduct. My God.
I think it's now down to like 11 or something.
No, he settled 20, so it's down to 4 at this point in time. At this point of recording, it's now down to 4 allegations that are not settled. So he's still got to undergo all those legal procedures, and we encourage you to read upon those because that's definitely going to have a big impact, not just on the football season, but just on society at large, because this is a very high-profile guy, and it's just a very big case. And it's just, there's a lot to it. It's a very complex...
He's a weird dude.
He's a very weird dude.
I'm going to say that one outright. He's a weird dude.
Even before these allegations, he was still a weird dude.
He's a weird guy.
But I hope that there is some resolution to be solved in this, just on a human level, not just a football level. But we're not. I mean, even though we are humans, this is a football podcast.
Correct.
And I will say this, if Deshaun Watson is gone for a good period of time this year, do not expect the Cleveland Browns to be a playoff contending team.
Oh no, to piggyback off of what you said, this is absolutely another jump straight into desperation mode. They gave Deshaun Watson that enormous, fully guaranteed contract. I think it was like
$230 million guaranteed,
with like a $20 million sign-on bonus, so $250 million guaranteed to not play potentially. And now all you have left is who as your starting quarterback?
If Deshaun Watson will not play this season, Jacoby Brissett will be starting.
You spent $250 million to start Jacoby Brissett in still one of the hardest divisions in the league, going into yet another one of the consecutive hardest seasons of the league. Because now it's going to be the second season with 18 weeks, and the divisions are just getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So any mild step in the wrong direction is going to dig you a hole. But we all know Cleveland is team that digs themselves into holes they can't get out of.
They do. They really do. And I will say this. Getting back to Baker Mayfield, the Browns are still paying him about, I believe,
$60 million?
no, $13 million because he was still on his rookie deal. Yeah, because he was drafted the same year as Lamar.
Oh,
And so
right.
they just kept extending Baker Mayfield. So basically, the Browns are paying Deshaun Watson $230 million. I believe it's $230 million guaranteed, and then 20 on the back end.
Right.
So $230 million guaranteed, and about $13 million to Baker Mayfield. Two quarterbacks that probably won't play for them this year. Well, definitely not Baker Mayfield,
No.
but you're paying quarterbacks to not play for you.
Yes.
How that does not make sense at all.
No. And as a Cleveland Browns fan, you really should just be scratching your head at really what's happening. You know, you went from really, it was a promising season last year. You know, they had a promising season up until Baker got hurt and started playing with 2, 3, 4 injuries on top of a rotator cuff injury on his, I believe it was his non-throwing arm. But that's besides the point. You're playing, again, in one of the hardest divisions, hurt. And as commendable as it is, when you guys are trying to play for, more importantly for them, a playoff run, you can't do that. You got to take the time off. You got to heal your body early in the season, not let it linger and become an explosive injury at the end, where you have no choice but to play with it.
Yeah. So
and that's kind of what Baker Mayfield fell into in Cleveland.
Yeah, and now he is a Carolina Panther, and he is the same position as the quarterback who was drafted 2 spots beneath him, Sam Darnold.
Yep.
And they're going to be competing for the starting job this year. So at this point in time, there really is no starter. There is just, we can speculate on who we think it will be.
Mm-hmm.
But Carolina at this point in time seems to be a desperate team getting a quarterback from another desperate franchise.
Yep.
And but it makes for a very interesting week 1 because the Carolina Panthers play the Cleveland Browns.
That they do.
Week 1.
Revenge game number 1.
Revenge game number 1.
And you see, that's very. Before we go into that, who do you think is going to walk into week 1 as a starter in Carolina? Baker or Darnold?
I think they're going to start with Sam Darnold, but I think they're going to end with Baker Mayfield. And the reason I say that is because the Carolina Panthers last year signed Darnold to an extension. So what that means is they have too much pride to admit that, hey, we were wrong in signing and extending Sam Darnold. Let's see what he's got for us the first couple weeks. And then he'll probably win a couple games in the beginning. They started 3-0 last year. Everyone was saying they were looking good.
You and I both.
And then they fell off hard.
Yes, they did.
And so I think by the time that they fall off come end of September, beginning of October, that's when they'll start Baker Mayfield. But I don't think Baker Mayfield will start against that game against the Cleveland Browns. Personally, that's just my speculation on the matter. But who do you see?
See, I personally feel like it's going to come down to Baker Mayfield's rehab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he suffered some pretty bad injuries.
Yeah.
You know, he had to have a full reconstructive surgery on his non-throwing arm. Pretty sure he had to get some type of hinge put in his rotator cuff.
Yeah.
It was a pretty sizable surgery what he got. So depending on how his rehab goes is where he winds up, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say he has a terrible rehab, and which really is unlikely because of the stature of the player that he is and where he's at in the league. He's going to get the best rehab facilities that he can. So he's going to come out. He's probably not going to come out stronger, though.
No.
He's been beaten up in Cleveland for a very long time. And Sam Darnold still showed some promise in the first couple weeks.
But you know why? Because Christian McCaffrey was still healthy at that time.
You see, you and I go back and forth on Christian McCaffrey, man. He's too injury prone to really be a factor.
He is, but when he's on the field, he is a factor.
But he's not on the field long enough to be a long-term factor.
No, you're right. But my point is, last year they were successful in that 3-0 run because Christian McCaffrey was available before he got hurt, and he was more of the catalyst to the Panthers' success than Sam Darnold. I agree with you that Christian McCaffrey is not a long-term viable solution at this point in time, because he's very injury prone, but he's he's the piece that turns the gears in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as there's a high importance for the quarterback position in across all teams, for the Panthers specifically, it's Christian McCaffrey that determines their success.
Didn't they also have a hot young wide receiver in the beginning who got hurt as well?
DJ Moore, you're talking
Yes.
about? He's still there.
Didn't he get hurt though throughout the season last year for Carolina?
He missed a couple games, but he was still there, and he's still on the team this year, and he should probably make good friends with either Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, whoever.
And quick.
quick.
So that game's going to be interesting to see.
So, but let's talk about some games that we look forward to this upcoming season.
Got it.
And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great games. Just starting with the first game of the year, Thursday night, September 8th in LA, the Bills against the Rams. That is going to be a phenomenal Week 1 game because the Rams, obviously the defending Super Bowl champions, and the Buffalo Bills, the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. So,
and not to mention the bitter taste that Buffalo has in their mouth from the playoffs. So they're going to come in angry, and the Rams are going to come in swift. So this game is going to be a lights out barn burner. I'm excited for this game.
This is probably the best matchup to have as the first game back.
Yeah.
To football this year.
This is like the biggest welcome back to the year that we could probably get. To me, this is what the Super Bowl probably should have been. I would have loved to watch this as a Super Bowl.
I would have liked to see it too, but hey, maybe we'll see it next year.
Who knows?
Anything is possible. Remember, the AFC this year, 13 out of 16 teams could be considered playoff contenders.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about, but the NFC is very heavy at the top. There's the 3 to 4 teams that are going to be successful, and then everyone else is kind of a free-for-all. We know Tampa Bay is going to be very good.
Yep.
We know the Rams are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Green Bay is going to be good. Depending on how good for each team is, dependent on how this offseason shaped up for them.
Right.
So, but we know that for the NFC, those are the big dogs in the NFC. I know we'll probably talk about later as the season goes on the up-and-coming teams that are really starting to be a force in the NFC.
Yes.
Don't sleep on the Eagles.
Definitely don't sleep on the Eagles. Don't sleep on Jalen Hurts, man.
He is a baller.
Eyes open for Jalen Hurts.
He is a baller.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but what about also Week 1, Kansas City versus Arizona, man?
That is going to be a fantastic game to watch. It's going to be Mahomes and that new-looking offense without Tyreek Hill against Kyler Murray, who just got paid Deshaun Watson money, and the Arizona Cardinals looking to kind of right the wrongs of last year. And now, I do want to say this, and I think we discussed this off camera, but it's not necessarily who you play with. Oh, yeah, it's when you play them.
You just said that a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that was off the air or on the air. But it's when you play them. And I think specifically for the Arizona Cardinals and the Chiefs, Arizona does a lot better. They're much like the Raiders. They do a lot better in the early part of the season.
Right.
So I'm interested to see these two teams probably going to come out hot and blazing. And that's probably going to be the first shootout of the year.
Yes. But to piggyback off of that, I seriously hope that whatever drama is starting in Arizona, for those who don't know, there was some type of clause in the contract that Kyler Murray wanted that has since been taken away that forced him to do like 4 hours a week of private study, meaning that he was mandated to watch film. And that's causing a whole bunch of internal issues between Kyler Murray and the Arizona franchise. So I hope that come Week 1, that's all squashed and they're ready to win a game. Because if not, listen, Andy Reid's almost unbeatable in September. They are unbelievable in September, the Kansas City Chiefs. If you have anything that is setting you back heading into playing Kansas City, you're not going to have a good time. So I hope for Arizona's sake that that whole drama situation is squashed come week 1. Because that's still a fresh wound as of this recording.
Yes, it is. So I think both teams are going to come out angry because their season last year did not end the way they wanted to. But man, whew, that's going to be a fantastic week 1 matchup. But I got to say, Kansas City has a tough time because they play the Chargers week 2. Justin Herbert and the Chiefs week 2. That is going to be probably another shootout.
Yeah, I could see that being another shootout for sure. I want to see a refined Chargers this season. You know, we saw them last year, and we were both incredibly surprised. There was some magic there, and then they just didn't know how to close games. You know, I hope that they fine-tune that in camp, and they just figure out how to put the nail in the game when it's almost said and done. You know, when they're up by 7 and they can run the clock out and win by by 10 by kicking a late-minute field goal, I want to see that they learned that versus trying to rush for a touchdown and causing a late-game turnover and losing the game for it. You know, veer back, play sound, and win the game. The Chargers get ahead of steam going into this game. They could absolutely beat Kansas City.
Yeah, I also think that the 2 acquisitions for the Chargers that really is going to bolster their defense is the addition of J.C. Jackson, the former cornerback for the New England Patriots, their number 1 cornerback, and also Khalil Mack from Chicago. So yeah, Khalil Mack went to the Chargers. So you have him on the opposite side of Joey Bosa, and what the Chargers are looking to do is they are specifically being tailor-made to beat the Chiefs.
Yes.
Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to take that formula that the Buccaneers presented in that previous Super Bowl of cover 2, but getting pressure with your front 4 guys. So you have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack right on the ends to get those pressures. You know that they can't block them one-on-one.
No, so there's going to be double teams on both sides, leaving their 2 D tackles to really
open up. So the Chargers, I really like the moves that they made this year, and I think that with those defensive acquisitions, so long as they can stay healthy this year, I think those are the difference makers for the Chargers. And I really hope this year that we can see Justin Herbert in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be a good sight to see.
That would be a great sight to see.
You know, I want to see more of the young guns that have been coming in. You know, again, I'm going to go to my week 2 game. I love it, Buffalo versus Tennessee. You know, Derrick Henry comes back. Going to be fun to watch this season.
He is going to be
a man on a mission. You want to talk about a race for 2000? It's going to be him and Jonathan Taylor, number 1 and 2.
Yes.
Running backs in the league this year. And it won't be close. Everyone else is going to be so far behind. So, but on the other side, again, Buffalo. I hope that bitter taste stays in their mouth throughout this entire season. And they end up right back where they belong, and that's the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I would really like to see Buffalo go very far this year and at least make it to the AFC title game. But man, I think the schedule really favors them because of they picked up Von Miller this year in the offseason. That's a big move because he was a difference maker for the Rams once he was traded from Denver to the Rams. But he is going to be a big part of their defense. And remember, Buffalo had the number 1 defense last year.
They did.
They had the number 1 defense. So it's like you only make your team better. That's going to be something to look at, and it's going to be fun if Buffalo is going to be able to make a wall on week 2 to try and stop Derrick Henry. So that is going to be a fantastic matchup to watch. It's going to be one of
the most physical games of the season, and it's only week 2.
Well, there's plenty of other games to look forward to. Week 3, we have Green Bay Packers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Brady Rogers. So
battle of the vets, man.
It's
always fun to watch.
The old vets with a young core. That's going to be some interesting football to watch.
Always fun to watch.
And there's just a lot of great games this upcoming season. Denver and Las Vegas
Denver Vegas, I personally can't wait for because it's going to be another showing for Derek Carr to prove himself in front of a future Hall of Fame quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm going to start this conversation here. Derek Carr is a Hall of Fame quarterback. You look at his career stats, line him up with Colin Cowherd has done it multiple of times. With Hall of Fame quarterbacks, when it comes to pass percentage, completion rate, touchdown to interception rate, he's in the lines to become a Hall of Fame quarterback. He will not go down he will not be a first ballot Hall. I'm not saying he will be a Hall of Fame quarterback in time.
I'll tell you what, for me personally,
Derek, he needs one.
He needs, well, not one. He needs to at least make it out of the wild card round.
Okay.
He needs to win a playoff game. And it was very honorable for the Raiders to make it to the wild card round this past season, but ultimately lose to the AFC champs, the Cincinnati Bengals. But
look at the turmoil that they faced.
Yes, Derek Carr is the rock to that organization.
100%.
We talked about it last season about a lot of turbulent behavior within the front office with Henry Ruggs and all that situation. There's been a lot of stuff for Vegas that has not gone their way, but Derek Carr has been the one constant, the one presence that's just solid as a rock, and does his job very well. And to that, I have a lot of respect for it. And he won me over that last week of the season where him and Justin Herbert were in a shootout.
Oh, they battled.
That was probably the second best game of the year.
Arguably, yes.
And then the first best game of the year was probably Kansas City Buffalo in the divisional round. but I gotta say, just the AFC West this year is going to be loaded because obviously for the big reason that Russell Wilson is now a Denver Bronco.
Yes.
Which makes the Broncos possible playoff contenders. But it's tough because Kansas City is still a dominant team. The Chargers are still on the rise. They're getting better every year. The Raiders are a solid team that with a great quarterback that can get you there. And the Raiders have also boosted their defense. They got Chandler Jones this offseason as well. So they bolstered their defense. They also got Devontae Adams from the Green Bay Packers.
And now they clipped all of their animosity last season. Now you put all of that together for a good situation. Great quarterback, perfect pieces. They're going to go somewhere this year.
I would like to see them go somewhere, but I know a lot of people also want to see the Broncos go somewhere because Russell Wilson.
Everyone wants to see hometown hero bring one home.
Yeah,
he lives in Denver. He grew up in Denver. It would be great to see Russell Wilson get another one.
Yes.
But to me, again, this is just the soft spot speaking. It would be a little nicer to watch Vegas get one.
I know.
It would be a little nicer to watch the Raiders grab one than watch the Broncos.
I think we're a little split on this Week 4 game.
I think that's okay, though.
But we'll get to that come Week 4. But, man, there's so many other great games to be talking about. And Russell Wilson to the Broncos is just another thing to talk about. But it's just one of many things to talk about. But there's so many other great games. I do want to just switch it over to the NFC real quick. Week 6, we have Dallas and Philly. And a lot of people, Dallas has a rough first couple games of the schedule, but this will really be the turning point for them and the Philadelphia Eagles because one of those teams is probably going to make the playoffs. The Commanders and the Giants are not going to win that division. We can discuss more about that a little later, but it's probably going to be between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And if the Cowboys falter in the first couple weeks and they lose to Philly, because remember, they swept Philly last year. They blew them out both times.
Okay.
But the second time, they were on like a lot of third and fourth stringers because of injury.
Right.
So Eagles were kind of a little injury hobbled at the end. But early in the season, you have to go to Philly, one of the most hostile places to play in. Jalen Hurts is balling, and he's going to be balling with his best friend, A.J. Brown. And Devonta Smith on the outside.
Let's not forget about that fly guy.
Don't forget about Miles Sanders, too. He's a very slept-on running back.
Yep, he is.
So,
Bills is fun to watch. They're gonna be fun to watch this year. We said it last year. They're one of those teams that you just don't want to play when you're not playing well.
yeah,
And Week 6 is a very strong time for Dallas to not be playing well. Like you look back, they usually start faltering around Week 4, either right before their bye week, or their bye week is nowhere in sight. And by the time that comes in, they're going to be so hurt that the bye week is for people to get uninjured.
mm-hmm.
And by that point, it's too far to tell. So come Week 6, it's going to be a coin flip for Philly, for Dallas rather. But when it comes to Philly, that's going to be a very, very overpowered game for them. I feel like Philly is just overall the better team. They've made the better moves, and they're really showing out to be one of the more well-rounded franchises when it comes to inward and outward.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, remember, the one fact that really was eye-opening for the Eagles last year was that they were the number 1 rushing team in the league.
Yes.
Better than the Ravens, better than any other team that has a great running attack. Denver has a great running attack as well.
Cleveland had a great running attack.
Cleveland has a fantastic running game. But the Eagles were the
they
best.
Did better.
They were the best. And so this is going to be the second year for Nick Sirianni, their head coach.
Yep.
So another year under his belt. I'm interested to see how the Eagles are looking come next year.
I'm definitely interested for that.
So I just want to skip to Week 8 for a sec because there's 3 games in particular that are great to keep an eye out for. The Ravens play the Bucks. Great time. The Packers play the Bills. Great. And the Steelers play the Eagles.
Yep.
That's going to be another game where it's going to determine both teams where they stand going forward in the season. And we didn't talk much about the Ravens and the Steelers, but we'll talk about them a little later on once we get to the back end of the season. But man, the Packers and Bills, woo, that's going to be a good one.
Packers and Bills is going to be fun. It's going to be, to me, it's almost going to be like a mirror match between Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers. Look at the way Josh Allen plays and tell me he doesn't remind you of a young, primed Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like,
he does.
Like, honestly.
He reminds me of when the Packers went 15-1 the year after their Super Bowl.
Yep.
And just on fire.
Just couldn't be stopped. Could not be stopped. He runs. He lowers his shoulder as a quarterback. You don't see that no more. So that is going to be an absolute mirror match. And come Week 8, if either of them have any type of a head of steam in either their division or in the league rankings at all,
mm-hmm.
they both Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers could absolutely be looking at MVP seasons again this year.
It is very possible. I doubt Aaron Rodgers will win it for a 3rd year in a row.
I don't see it.
I don't see it.
But he plays that well and consistent that he could very well. But Josh Allen, if he isn't in the runs for MVP this year, there's something wrong.
He's looking to be the favorite.
Right.
But we'll discuss more about that when the season gets on a little deeper. I just want to skip ahead for a couple weeks. I want to go to Week 13. Kansas City and the Cincinnati Bengals have their revenge matchup from the AFC title game, but this time it's in Cincinnati.
Hostile.
In November. It's going to be a fascinating game to watch because we expect, I don't know, I have different expectations for the Bengals this year than most people do. I think the Bengals are going to progress a little bit this year. But I think come that game, if they can still beat the Chiefs, they're still going to be a playoff contending team. Because the Chiefs, we have high expectations for the Chiefs. We expect them to still do good. Maybe not win their division because the AFC West is very loaded.
Right.
But we still expect them to be playoff contending teams. For the Bengals, if they could still hang with the Chiefs, they're still a playoff contending team. And that's scary to anyone who has to play them. Obviously, speaking as a Ravens and a Steelers fan,
we don't like to see good things come out of the other side of Ohio. Like, we're so used to this freaking entire state of Ohio being absolutely terrible at football.
Yeah.
Watching one go to the Super Bowl without an offensive line, mind you. They didn't have an offensive line. They made it to the Super Bowl. And they went 10 rounds with the Rams.
And they almost won it.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. They went 10 rounds and they almost won. Off season, they filled every hole they needed.
Specifically their offensive line.
Specifically their offensive line, and they filled their offensive line with Pro Bowlers. Not just anybody, they filled them with Pro Bowlers. So, you want to talk about an insurance policy? Cincinnati doubled down on Joe Burrow. And guess who they picked up in the offseason? Thaddeus Moss.
There you go.
I told you it was going to happen. I told you it was going to happen, and it happened.
And now LSU is coming to Cincinnati.
The Tigers and Tigers. So I'm just throwing that one out there that it happened. Networking happened, and they brought him in.
So you have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Thaddeus Moss, and Joe Mixon, and Joe Burrow slinging them the ball.
Joe Burrow with 4 Pro Bowl linemen on his offensive helm. So that is going to be a toe-to-toe, bare-knuckle fight against Kansas City.
Yeah.
Because not only that, Cincinnati's defense is nasty. Bunch of young guns, like really no one of merit to really call out name-wise. They have one D tackle that I recall giving a shout-out for having a couple of sacks in the game. I don't remember his name
Trey
offhand.
Hendrickson?
No, I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
His number was in the 90s. That's all I remember.
Okay.
But they're a team. I remember saying when they started coming together, like they would have bad games, but they would have bad games together. That's what made their good games that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So because they are one of the most unified teams in the league. Because they were bad for so long, but they were bad together, and now that they're good, they're getting better together. So they went through the shit, and now they're rising through it, and I absolutely see them as a playoff contender for quite some time. Especially now with the opportunity of an entire division to be able to hit the playoffs potentially. At the very least 3. The AFC North should be one of those divisions in argument to have 3 out of 4 in the playoffs for a couple years to come.
Well, yeah, within the next couple years, which I think it's time for us to talk about your Steelers.
So we're going to move on to Week 14.
Week 14, the Ravens and the Steelers
round
play
1.
For the first time in Pittsburgh.
Round 1.
Now, we reserved talking about the Ravens and Steelers until the end because that's our teams. But we play Week 14, and now there's going to be a lot that's going to happen from Week 1 to Week 14.
Yeah.
And especially for the Steelers' sake, they're going to have a new quarterback at the helm. It's either going to be Mitchell Trubisky, which is not a bad pickup for the Steelers, or Kenny Pickett, the rookie that they drafted.
Or,
or Mason
Rudolph, but you know what he produces. He produces a 500 season at best. Nothing more, nothing less. He will play subpar. He'll have his good games, but he plays subpar. So you have an unproven Kenny Pickett, and then you have a Mitch Trubisky who is level. He's level. He's not bad. He's not great. He's level.
You know what it is he was I'll say good quarterback on a bad team for very long.
Chicago.
But the thing is though, he has to be one of those quarterbacks where he has to be a cog in the system and not the reason why the system revolves around him. And they tried to do that in Chicago, where it's like he had to be the one to solely win them games. Him and the defense.
And he did every so often.
But I think with this season, he's probably in the best environment that he can be in. Because the Steelers, it's not meant for him. But if he does well, the team is going to be doing well. And that's the thing is, Mike Tomlin is not going to emphasize player-centric mentality. He emphasizes team winning.
Yes, winning as a team.
So whoever is going to be starting throughout the season and whoever's going to be playing in that Week 14 game is Mike Tomlin's choice on who he thinks is going to be the best player to win them games.
I agree.
So, Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky, that's going to be interesting. But I do want to just move on to the Ravens for a second and say we're getting a lot of healthy pieces back.
Yeah, you are.
So, we're going to have Marcus Peters come back, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards.
But guess what, my son? It is a long season
It is
until
a long
we
season.
meet.
Yeah, we
So
play.
all them pieces can be healthy for 13 weeks.
That's true.
Come week 14, if they are hurt, we're going to capitalize.
Even Lamar too.
Even Lamar. Because homeboy keeps getting sick.
Well, he was sick, but he got hurt last year against the Cleveland Browns, and I believe he was either week 13 or 14, around the same time. But not by running the ball so much, but he was sacked by his ankles in the pocket.
Oh, that's right. He took a mean ankle pick.
So, but Lamar's coming back healthy. No Hollywood, Rashad Bateman, but we have a great. I like our off-season moves this year. I think the Ravens made some great off-season moves. I think the Steelers made some great off-season moves as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both teams, as much as we think that Cincy is probably going to be a playoff contending team, both these teams are probably going to be playoff contending teams, the Ravens and the Steelers. I will just say this, before Lamar got hurt, we were 8-3 and the first seed in the AFC.
Yes, you were.
So that was before all the injuries, and that was even when our entire running back core was depleted before week 1 of last year.
Oh,
now,
for sure.
Now we're recording this at the end of July, beginning of August. So there's still a lot of time. There's still a lot of things that can happen from now until the beginning of September.
Oh, yeah.
So
let's hope that for both of our sakes, come week 1 we are completely healthy, and more so even come week 14 that we are as healthy as we can be. Because again, this is going to be a season of attrition. Because after this, we meet 3 weeks later in week 17. Week
in Baltimore.
17 in Baltimore, man. And if anything has proven constant when it comes to football year in and year out, the cold hurts. So we're going to be playing in the middle of December. Pretty sure that's Christmas weekend, week 17.
I believe so.
Or maybe it might be the first week of January. I don't know. I have to double check. It's going to be bitter, bitter cold. So the attrition's really going to set in there, and that's going to come across the board come around then. That's what I'm more excited to see. These teams that are hot in the summer and the fall, how do you play in the winter? Because the winters are just getting colder.
Yeah, the winters are just getting colder, and you know what it is? You know what I like that we're playing week 17 is that these games are between the two of us are going to matter that much more.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to determine not just our standings in the playoffs, but other teams' standings in the playoffs, because since he's going to be there, Cleveland probably not, because Deshaun Watson's not going to be there, but they can still play spoil. They're still a very well constructed team outside of quarterback.
Yeah.
So the AFC North is a tough division to play in, and it's a tough division to play in the winter.
And it's a tough team to really, I would say, almost underestimate, because with the injuries last year, with us not really having a quarterback per se, because we have Young or Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph, who just gives 500 seasons. So there's a lot that's up in the air, but people need to understand that we're one of the best coached divisions in the league.
Yep.
Where every team has a good coach, but it could have bad front office. Look at Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski
Yep.
is a good coach. He's a good coach. He has no help. He has no assistant coordination. He has no general management. He has nothing else on the inside.
Yeah.
And so it shows on the field. He's trying to put a ragtag team together. Meanwhile, they're pulling pieces that worked from him. So that doesn't help. But then you look over in Baltimore, you have Harbaugh. We kind of bred Harbaugh to be what he was. And vice versa. Like, you and I have gone back and forth for years to nauseam talking about how we helped build each other as teams to become these rivals.
Yep.
To be one of the greatest rivalries of all time.
I would argue the best, because
a lot of people argue it because of longevity with the Ravens. They think that
we're a new franchise, of course.
You're a newer franchise, so they think the better one is freaking Green Bay and Chicago.
Yeah.
Which is understandable.
It's historic. It's a more historic rivalry.
Which honestly can even still be argued when it comes to record.
Yes.
Our record only differs by a game.
Yeah.
theirs differs by like
a lot.
And that's in the last couple of years too.
But the thing is, though, that I feel for the Bears because the football world is better when the Bears are a good team.
I agree.
And I say that because the Bears represent a very blue-collar, hard-working, put your nose to the grindstone team that plays hard in the winter as well. But throughout the years, they haven't had good coaching. They haven't had good quarterbacks. They've had a lot of good skill position players, but they can't keep them for long.
Right.
So I feel for the Bears because I'm looking at the Bears this season, and I'm thinking they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league, unfortunately.
And that hurts.
And that hurts because when you look at that rivalry between the Packers and Bears,
you want it to be great.
You want it to be good, and it's just, Aaron Rodgers is just taking both of those games.
Chicago. It's just one of
Oh yeah, that's right. He said, "I own you."
He owns Chicago, and it's unfortunate because a lot of those losses came at the helm of Aaron Rodgers. You know.
So there's a lot of great games to look forward to this season, and I will say this: Week 18 is all divisional games. So we're going to be talking about some of those grudge matches coming up in those upcoming weeks. But yeah, Chris Palmer, are you excited for this upcoming season?
Yep, I'm excited. I know you can't wait. I hope you guys. What? Come on. Well, but.
Well, let's refresh.
Wow.
Internet issue?